Hello and welcome to another Everyday Money for Everyday People webinar. My name is Todd Christensen, Director of Education at Debt Reduction Services, Inc., and author of the book Everyday Money for Everyday People. Today we're going to be talking about spending plans, how to take care of the money that we do have. And so let's get started. To begin with, let me just introduce who we are, why we do what we do. Debt Reduction Services is a nonprofit credit counseling agency. We've been around since '96. We've helped tens of thousands of people through financial education, but also through our debt management program to help people pay off their debts dollar for dollar, just at better interest rates, so we work together with their creditors. So that's what we do. That's who we are. Get that out of the way. Let's move on. The purpose here, first of all, if you are uncomfortable with the word budget, and a lot of people are. A lot of people hear the word budget, it just gives them the creeps, or they just hate the idea, and chest gets real tight. They think they might be having a heart attack. Look, if that's you, or if you have any kind of negative response to the word budget, just replace it with the word, or with the phrase spending plan. That's what a budget is. It is a plan on how we're going to spend our money. That does a few things. First of all, it gets rid of some of the anxiety associated with the B word. But it also recognizes that we do have to spend money on a regular basis, so why not plan on how we're going to do that? The idea being, if we're going to make a plan on how to spend it, we're much more likely to spend it on things that are most important to us. So the next, and probably the first, the most obvious question, though, is what do we mean by frenemy? What is a frenemy? It's a fairly new term, been around for probably less than a decade for many of us in the mid-2010s. But frenemy can be one of two things. It can be an enemy who pretends to be your friend and is really out to stab you in the back, but it also can be a friend who poses or doesn't necessarily come across as a friend, but rather looks like you're an opponent. And that's how we're actually looking at our budgets today. We're looking at a budget as something that doesn't look fun, doesn't look like something we'll enjoy spending time with, but in the long run has our best interest in mind. So that's what we're talking about when it's a frenemy. Our budget, we need to turn it from that foe. It'd be great if we could turn it to our friend, but for some people, sometimes the best we can hope for is just, let's call it a frenemy. You can still look at it like a foe, but you have to understand that it's going to help you in the long run. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of the first passcode first. Write down the word STOP, S-T-O-P. You're going to need that when you take the quiz to get credit for this class. S-T-O-P, STOP. Okay, something else that we're going to be talking about today is the money pie. This is a simplified way of approaching a budget. We'll get into it in more details, but just know that this is a way that a lot of people have tried working all the details out of a budget, writing every line item. Here's my income, here's my spouse's income, here's a tax refund on this month, and then all the expenses from the rent or the mortgage to the insurance on that house to the taxes, and then you start getting cars and then cell phones and groceries and on and on and on. And it can get really overwhelming for some people who are not used to or do not enjoy budgeting. So we're gonna propose a way to simplify some of that today. It's called the money pie. But to begin with, why this is all so important? Because the reality is a very large percentage of us in this country are living paycheck to paycheck or worse. That means every dollar that comes in, by the time we get our next paycheck, has already gone out the door, and we have nothing of value to show for it. We're not building any wealth or stability. And when I talk about wealth, I'm not talking about anything to show off. I'm not talking about having fancy cars or a mansion. That's, in my mind, I see that as living rich. There's a definite distinction I would like to make between living rich and being wealthy. Being wealthy is being able to provide for your needs. It's being able to build security and freedom to do what you want to do. It is not about the show. There's a whole series of classes I could do about the show when it comes to what people do sometimes to show off or to make themselves feel better, to build their own self-esteem upon a really sandy foundation there. But wealth building cannot be done when we're living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, I share in my classes that if we're living paycheck to paycheck, we actually don't get paid. It doesn't matter how many paychecks you get or how big your paycheck is. If you're not paying yourself, you're paying everybody else. That paycheck comes in, it goes back out to the big house or to the apartment. It goes back out to the car or the 2 cars or the lease on the car. It goes back out to the utilities and to the credit card companies and to everybody else who has a piece of that, who's already got a claim to our paycheck. And we're left with nothing. We haven't got paid yet. So there is a reason why I believe that paying ourselves first is not only important, but it is the most, it's the best way to determine or to determine if somebody's going to be successful and stable financially in the future. A habit of saving something, paying themselves first. But paycheck to paycheck, it's really unconscionable and very unacceptable. I mean, we need to live on less than what we earn. Yes, there are some income levels that make it virtually impossible to save anything. But if we were going to be honest with ourselves and we were going to sit down and say, what do you actually need versus what do you want out of life, most of us want a lot more than what we need. We live in a very comfortable and a very well-off society where the standard of living, the expectation for the standard of living it just towers above the actual physical needs that we have. If you were ever to visit a third world country and see what actual physical survival needs are, they're fairly meager. Think of how many generations throughout time have survived without cell phones and cars and yes, oh, you can't survive in our society without a cell phone. Yes, we can. It's just very inconvenient. And I'm not saying I'm not belittling the importance of the cell phone. It is very important on getting a job, on staying connected to in society. But what kind of a cell phone? Do we have to have a $500 cell phone? Do we have to have a $300 a month bill? The problem is when we start calling something a need, it becomes very easy to justify overspending on that need. So anyway, we're living paycheck to paycheck. The goal is to switch that around. And the direction we're heading is not this way. We don't want to live beyond our means. That's not living paycheck to paycheck. Obviously, that's spending more than what we actually bring in. And at different times in our lives, many of us have been there. If we're not there at the moment, there are some months throughout the year where we might be. Other months may not be. But the problem is when this becomes a pattern. When we are getting into debts through credit cards, when we are hit with medical expenses that are for the most part beyond our control, when we are making consumer purchases, these all can lead to long-term indebtedness, collections, huge fees, and even bankruptcy in the long run. So there are immediate problems with living beyond our means. It doesn't take much. If we're going into debt month after month, it does not take much to get into financial trouble. A trip to the emergency room, or new tires for the car, they can all send us kind of over that financial edge. And it is definitely not sustainable in the long run when we're going to continue to have, from time to time, life's just going to slap us in the face and say, here's another expense that you have to deal with you didn't expect. We can't deal with that when we are in long-term living beyond our means, paycheck to paycheck, not let alone going into debt on a day-to-day or month-to-month basis. So paycheck to paycheck is not sustainable. What we're shooting for is something every month going into some funds that we can use either for emergency funds or for some of these short-term goals for buying appliances or furniture or anything along those lines. I have 10% here. That is something to shoot for. We're going to be actually going over some of the percentages with the money pie in a minute. But 10% is a good goal. Is it enough? Depends on our lifestyle. It depends on our current situation, our income. Okay. So a lot of us grew up being told that we had to live within our means. Let's change that around. Let's not call it living within our means. Let's refer to living below our means. Because honestly, living within our means, that's basically saying living paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of us are actually doing that. So let's make sure that we're living below our means and paying ourselves first that we actually get paid on payday. Passcode number 2, over, O-V-E-R, over, O-V-E-R. So I get a lot of comments and discussion about, well, you know what, if I made more money, everything would be fine. I wouldn't have to worry about so much save and I could pay off all my debts. The reality is we can overspend in this country and in our global society now. We can overspend on any income. It wouldn't surprise you, I'm sure, to tell you that I've met people, clients or not, that are making $10,000, $15,000 a month, and yet have $150,000, $200,000 of credit card debt and consumer debt, and struggle to meet those obligations on a month-after-month basis. So, who do you think sleeps better at night? Somebody who's maybe got who's earning over $100,000 but has $150,000 of consumer debt, or the person who's earning maybe the American average typical median income somewhere in the $50,000 range, but has $5,000, $10,000 in the bank and no consumer debt. They're living below their means. They're not living way beyond their means by overspending on consumer products and material goods, that sort of thing. Who sleeps better at night? I think most of us would probably answer the same on that. So, what to do, how to get there. Let's talk about turning that budget from foe to frenemy. So this is where the money pie comes in. And whenever we're talking about a budgeting process, we've got to make sure that we use our net income. That is not what our employer says we make or what the government says we make. That's what our actual paycheck is. What money do we actually have to spend? That's reality. The other one is gross income. Gross is fantasy. Gross is what the government says we earn. Gross is what our employer reports that this is how much I'm paying you. But that's actually not how much we have to spend. So we're going to work in net income. That's reality. So this pie represents our net income. This is how much we have to spend on a monthly basis. And what we're going to do is go through each of these percentages. And we're actually going to start up the top of that green piece of pie. I don't know if you like key lime pie, but let's start there. Some people have a hard time seeing that and not going right for it. So let's go with the key lime pie, 10%. It is my opinion, and from what I've read, what I believe is that generosity first should be something we can all strive for. There is something about giving back to our society and a community, whether it's to an individual in need, whether it's to a charity, 501c3 charity, or to a church, or whatever. I don't include children in there, by the way. They're not charity. They are just kind of a responsibility if you have children. They don't count there. They come elsewhere. But giving back to our community, I believe, keeps us grounded in what our true needs are. We're going to understand, we're going to keep in mind that others have needs that are greater than ours sometimes. That we're going to be a little more grateful for what we have and a little less likely to go out and spend money on stuff, consumer stuff, that thinking that that's going to make us more comfortable or happier or whatever. I'm not saying that we should not have goals and make life comfortable, but I believe that by giving, we're going to be much more likely to be better, more responsible with the money that we do have. So I've got 10% here and 4 of the other categories. All these percentages, you can play with them, make them fit whatever works for you. 10% works easy just because it's an easy graphic to put together. It might be 2% though that you give back, or 1%, or 12%, or 15, or more. It's up to you. But start with this idea of 10% giving back somehow. Then we're going to go clockwise, and we're going to hit that biggest chunk of the money pie. And this half of our net income, that is our living expenses. And before you fall off your chair laughing, how in the world am I supposed to live on half of my income? Let me say, first of all, one for anybody who's dealing with a lot of consumer debt and major car loans or medical debts, anything along those lines, there's some adjustments that may have to be made in this, of course. This is certainly something to shoot for a lot of people, but it's also, too, not as big of a chunk as you might think. When I say living, what I'm talking about is your housing, which even lenders would say, oh, don't borrow more than about 30% of your income. Unfortunately, a lot of them will work that out on your gross income, which means it's probably closer to 45, sometimes even 50% of your net income. Way too much. Just because we get approved for a loan does not mean we can afford it or should afford it. But it includes rent and mortgage. It includes groceries. Just so you're aware, the average American will spend somewhere in their neighborhood about $150 a month in groceries. That's man, woman, child. Of course, children. Some children are going to eat less than that, unless they're teenage boys, and some girls as well, that just seem like to have endless appetites. They might eat more than that, but on average, about $150 a month. Now, if there's 4 of you in your household, what that says is, hey, you could be getting away with about $600 a month in groceries. But really, the more we have in the household, the less we could spend per person, because we can take advantage of buying larger items, larger packaging that's a lesser cost per unit. So an individual living on his own or her own may be spending $150, $200 a month. Much more than that, we should probably be looking at what are we actually spending our money on? Why is it so expensive? Are we living somewhere where they have to fly in food for us and it's triple the cost of the average American grocery store? And or are we just spending on a lot of prepackaged food items? So, rent, mortgage, groceries, utility bills, entertainment is not going to go here. So if you're thinking like, what about dining out? Well, that's entertainment. That's not groceries. Dining out is a convenience. It's something that would go under one of these other pie pieces that we'll get there in a minute. I would also put in there transportation. I would also put in there, and so that's vehicle, gasoline, insurance, and so you obviously, when we start looking at this budget, you're going to say, look, this doesn't seem realistic. I'll tell you and you may not be thinking about that, but some people would say this is not realistic. How am I supposed to have a car payment and a house payment on all this? And the reality is, you know what? Who says we have to have a car payment? We are the ones getting ourselves into a brand new car at $300, $400, $500 a month, when maybe we're only bringing in $2,000 or $3,000 a month, that's a huge chunk of our income. So the reality is, at some income level, many income levels, we need to be driving used cars that we can still find dependable cars. But until we have our mechanic on speed dial, we could be driving used cars for quite a while. Most used cars are going to last well over 10 years, 15 years anymore. They average 12,000 miles a year, and average cars typically you can expect them to go about 150 to 200,000 miles anymore before some major repairs work. So that's over 10 years that we can get out of most cars. Okay, so the cell phone I mentioned, that's it. That's the rent, the housing, which includes utilities as well, groceries, our transportation, communication. So that's 50%. If we could live on 50%, I'll tell you why this works. Because if not, if we're living on 100%, we're in deep trouble. Because it's not like the rest of this budget is unnecessary. We're going to need the next 3 or 4 pie categories. Just because we're not spending them today doesn't mean we're not going to need them later. So the next one, the blue one down at the bottom, that is our short-term preparing for emergencies or for short-term expenses. By short-term, what I'm talking about there would be an emergency fund going for medical expenses, but also maybe transportation emergency, house repair emergency, appliances, furniture, things that are going to break down in our home. And because when the refrigerator dies, it's not like we can say, well, yes, we're going to save up for another year so we can buy another fridge. It's the fridge. We're going to need it. And so if we don't have money put aside for that, the problem then becomes, well, what are our options? A lot of people turn to credit cards, and so that $1,000 fridge, because we have a 15% interest rate on our credit card, and we pay it off over the next 2 or 3 years, now that fridge costs us actually $1,200 or $1,300 because of all the interest that we're going to be paying. Fridges, by the way, expect them to last about 15, 16 years. So if your fridge is getting up toward about 15, 16 years old, it's time to really start putting money into that new fridge account. But also into this blue pie piece would go any kind of personal or leisure travel, kind of vacations, gift giving, Christmas gifts or birthday gifts, other, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Valentine's, any kind of gifts. If you give all those kind of gifts during those holidays or during those times, you can take it out of this kind of a fund. And by the way, as we're talking about each of these, there's different ways of putting this money aside, different places to put this money as we go through. And so let me kind of go back to giving. We can automate our giving if we're giving to the same organization each month. We can have an online bill pay, send out that payment every single month so it just happens, or we can get it in cash, or we can do both. And our bills under living, we need to automate those as much as possible so that they're happening either by bill pay or by direct debit. That for example, a utility company is taking their monthly payment right out of our checking account every month. I would particularly suggest that we get on level pay for all those utilities so that the heating bill in the winter time does not kill our account when it's 3 times more higher than it was just in mid-fall. So get on level pay so it's the same amount every single month all throughout the year. There's no additional fees for those. It's just an average of our monthly usage. And then we start getting into this preparing, the blue pie, the preparing for the short term. Automatically transfer that money into 1 or more savings accounts. from our main checking account. So, for example, we could have a savings account for just vacations and travel. We can have another savings account for gift giving. We can have another savings account for appliances and furniture, another one for the medical emergencies, and another one for car repairs or for our next car down the road. Because if our car has 120,000 miles on it, we're probably going to need another car in about 3 or 4 years. What are we doing to prepare for that? Are we just accepting that a car payment is a fact of life? So let's make sure that we are putting money aside so that we can minimize, at least minimize, if not forego that car debt as much as possible. But anyway, transfer money automatically. Have it set up so that it just automatically goes at the beginning of every month or on the 15th or whenever throughout the month. Money's just automatically going to those savings accounts. Those savings accounts can be at the same financial institution as a checking account, or you can use bill pay and send it to a financial or a savings account at a different bank or credit union. The advantage to that is you're much less likely to transfer it right back into your checking account when you think you need it. If it's an emergency, you can drive across town, get the money out of that other savings account. But so those are this is savings accounts, the blue pie. Now the red one, the bright red one, this next 10%, that's the long-term investments. That's retirement accounts, wealth building. So it might be a 401k, 403b, might include an individual retirement account or an IRA. These are accounts where we are automatically putting money in either directly from our paycheck through our employer or using bill pay or direct debit somehow. That we're building our nest egg for the long-term future. Now, the older we are, the higher that percentage needs to be if we're just getting started. So, you know, if we're young, 10%. If we're in our teens, 5% would probably do it. By the time, if teenagers who start working at age 16, 17, are putting 5% every year of their income, 5% into a retirement account, they will be set by the time they're ready to retire in their late 60s or mid-60s even. Those of us who may have started in our 40s or those who might start in their 50s, we're going to have to greatly increase the percentage there in order to have the same kind of retirement. So that's long-term. Again, those are investment accounts like 401ks, 403bs, IRAs. Then we get into the brown, the light tan pie, piece of pie. That would be, it could be a couple of different things. One, it could be learning. If you have no debt, have that as a perpetual learning education fund for yourself. You can use that for some of your kids if you want, although I rarely suggest that parents pay all of their kids' education. If the students don't have any skin in the game, it becomes a lot easier to try and just slide by and not really appreciate what they're doing. So but maybe put some money, maybe it might be for their books or for board or maybe for their rooms or so forth. But anyway, that could be a continuing education for yourself as well. If you need to be to get continuing education, a lot of professions require CEUs or continuing education units. You can pay for a conference in some nice tropical location, or you can pay for a conference somewhere else, and that money could be used to buy that, or it could be used to go back to school, get another degree or another certification that will increase your income. So, or it might be used for just hobby type of learning. If you have some hobbies that you maybe starting up that you can use to start up a small business, and that could be that program. But if you also have a lot of debts that you're trying to deal with, this 10% can be split also between the learning and between those debts to pay off or to accelerate those debts, that debt repayment. So that's learning. Now the final piece of the pie, I dare say, is the most important. This is fun. F-U-N. If we don't put fun into our money pie, it's going to end up being a mud pie. We're not going to want it. We're not going to want it around. It's not going to be any fun. We're not going to use it. But if we can put some fun money into our spending plan, then all of a sudden there's a reason why we're going to, in some cases, try and cut out some of these other expenses that may not be so easy to cut out. But if we can have 10% of our take-home pay, most households would love to have that. And it's not just 10%, it's 10% guilt-free money. Because here's what happens in a lot of households. We don't budget for the fun. We're living on a paycheck to paycheck, living on 100% of what we earn, and something fun comes up that we're like, let's do that, or let's buy that. And so we buy it and put it on credit, and all of a sudden we feel extra guilty for buying it. So we can't even enjoy it without that tinge of guilt in the back of our mind. So put 10% into fun money. Now, if you're married, both spouses get an equal percentage of that. Split it right down the middle and enjoy it. And when one spouse comes to the end of the month and asks, hey, what did you do with your fun money? Look them in the eye, say, I love you to death, but I'm not telling you because it's none of your business. And the reason for that is if we have to be held accountable for how we spend that fun money, then we're going to start spending it in a way that seems more responsible. And it's not as fun. And now living by a budget becomes tedious, and we're not going to do it. So it's got to be guilt-free money. Don't ask, don't tell when it comes to our fun money. All right? So there's the money pie. Play with it, the percentages, however you want. You can go to our blog, oureverydaymoney.wordpress.com, or debtreductionservices.org, and do a search. You can find this money pie as a downloadable spreadsheet. You can punch in your own paycheck numbers, and it'll spit out how much money would go into each of these categories. And then you can, if you want, you can adjust the categories. So, hands-on. When you go back to the page where you access this webinar, you will also find a handout that you can download. And in that handout, it's a PDF, you'll find, first of all, a net income calculator. So if you're not sure how much your income is, you can at least estimate it here. But it also have a place where you can work on filling out your money pie. And it might have the 6 different categories, the 50% living, and then the 5 other 10% categories. It might have 60% living and the 20% for this and a 10, 10, 10. Work on it. Give it a try, however you want to do that. But do work on your money pie. Now, let me ask this question, particularly for spouses, because here's where we can take our budget from foe to frenemy. Which one of those is your relationship with money? Do you feel like you're chained to it, you have to hang out with it, you don't want to be, but that's just the way it is? Or do you really enjoy managing your money and what you can do with the income you have? Do you enjoy spending time budgeting your money? Well, some people do, some people don't. To be honest, let's talk about the number of the day, 43%. 43% according to a Consumer Financial Literacy Survey by Harris Interactive in 2012, and it hasn't really changed in the intervening years. 43% of American adults have a budget and track their expenses regularly. Yay, good for that 43%. But that leaves more than half of American adults who are not looking at a budget on a regular basis, who are not tracking their expenses. And it should not be surprising that a very similar number, about 40% of Americans are saving something on a regular basis, and about 55 to 60% are not saving anything. They're living paycheck to paycheck or worse. There is something about spending time with our money in a spending plan or a budget, that helps us be more dedicated to putting money into a savings account. So make that decision that we're going to spend time with the budget and we're going to save on a regular basis. So last thing, before I get to the last thing, here's your last passcode, spending, S-P-E-N-D-I-N-G, spending, S-P-E-N-D-I-N-G. So the last thing I want to talk about is, again, in the handouts you can download, there is a discussion about what a financial huddle is. You can do this if it's just you, if there's no other adult in your financial circumstances. You can do this as well, but it is particularly effective for the two adults in many households. You decide that you're going to do a financial huddle. You're going to meet the same day, same time, every single week, 10 to 15 minutes. Initially, it might be 15 to 20, but after that, sometimes it might be as little as 5 minutes or so. But you're going to meet and you're going to have a quick financial huddle. Think about it as you know, you're on a football team. Do you know what you're going to do for that play? If you don't go to the huddle and you haven't talked to the coach, you have no idea what you're doing that week or doing on that play, and you may end up offsides and have a penalty and all that kind of thing. Get in the huddle. Talk about, as a couple, one, pull out your goals. What are your financial goals you want to reach in the next couple of months, in the next few years? Make sure that you know why you're meeting to talk about your finances. If you're just doing it to do it, get by, blah, 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 who cares? But generally, you want to have a reason why you're talking about finances. That's number one. Number two, pull out your checkbook register or some other program. If you're using an app from a phone, you know, like a Mint or a Personal Capital, use a program. Make sure that you have a budget and that that your checkbook register is balanced. That you know what checks or what debit card expenses, purchases are out there that haven't cleared yet. How much money do you have available to you right now? Okay, make sure that we know what is in our wallets and in our cash, in our checking accounts. So that's figure out our cash flow. Project then. Number three, project down the road. What's our game plan for the next week to 2 weeks? Okay, what bills have to be paid? Who's going to pay them? How are they going to get paid? Are they going to be paid online? Are they going to be paid automatically? Do we have to use a check or debit card? You know, is it cash that we're going into a grocery store? Just let's make sure we know what bills are coming down the pike at us, and that we've decided. We also decide, okay, you pay this bill, I pay this bill. I'm going to pay that. I'll make sure this gets paid. Will you make sure that bill gets paid? It's particularly helpful when we're talking about medical debts. That can seem when we get even just a simple visit. Well, I guess there's no such thing as a simple visit to an emergency room. Even an emergency room visit, all of a sudden we get bills from 3 or 4 or 5 different providers, and it can be difficult to keep track of all those. Make sure that we're going over all those in this financial huddle, and then return to the goals. And hopefully they're written down, as I mentioned, having the goals. Make sure they're written down so that we come back to them and say, okay, now with all this in mind, we've got this much money, we've got these many bills, these bills coming due. What can we do in the next week to 2 weeks to get even closer to those goals that we have? And almost guaranteed, I'm not going to guarantee because everybody's circumstances are different, but almost guarantee that you're going to be able to accelerate your progress towards those goals, and you're going to reach them a lot sooner. So thank you for joining me today. This will end today's presentation. I would highly recommend continuing your financial journey by completing our additional Everyday Money workshops and webinars available at the same place where you found this one online. Thank you again. If you ever have any questions or would like to discuss your finances, maybe figure out how to pay off your debts or how to build credit, what can be done to build credit generally, we provide a lot of free educational programs. We can talk to you one-on-one or as a group. Do not hesitate to call us. We don't charge for that sort of educational program, so, or educational information. Give us a call or send us an email. Our phone number is toll-free 877-688-3328. Again, it's 877-688-3328. Feel free to view this webinar again. You can fast forward, rewind, pause it, however you'd like to do. Thank you again for joining us, and hope you have a great day, and best of luck and best wishes to you in your financial success.